Per usual, on this channel is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as financial advice. It's Wednesday. Let's take a look at some altcoins. We'll start with the good news, seemingly good news. You know, at a bare minimum, we need avenues to on-ramp people. So one way to do that would be stablecoins. Yes, they are centralized. Yes, they have issues. It's not perfect, but it is a way for people to onboard, whether that's through PayPal or Cash App or wherever else. The more ways, the better. So this is old news at this point, but PayPal did introduce a stablecoin. So in some regards, the stablecoin wars in the US have begun. We'll see when PayPal USD flippins USDC if that ever happens. But it's certainly a good sign from a regulatory perspective that PayPal had the wherewithal or knew enough about enough to be able to launch this thing, whereas somebody like Facebook previously was unable to get that off the ground. So this is a good thing. And if we look at PYUSD currently, not a lot going on. Based on this Dune dashboard, it looks like the current supply is around 44 million. Based on DeFi Llama, circulating is around 5.5 on ETH. So I wouldn't expect anything. Yeah, okay, so down here they have unreleased as well. So I wouldn't expect anything major. Nobody's here, right? We get these announcements. We got this announcement with Visa and USDC and Solana. Nobody cares. Nobody's here. It doesn't matter, right? This will be important down the road, assuming these avenues remain open, when flows do come back, when inflation does settle down, when people want to get back into the ecosystem. The more ways they can do this, the better. And at the end of the day, the more stablecoins we have, that might be a good thing. That might be a good thing for competitors against Tether, against USDC. It just keeps them all honest and on the up and up. And there's other stuff I'm not even mentioning. Jeremy, the CEO of Circle, has talked about Atom and Optimism and Base. You know, we're getting all these things that in general stablecoin news isn't bullish on its face, but it does help onboard users at the end of the day. And that's certainly what we need down the line. If we look at the total stablecoin USD pegged value from the block circulating supply, it's basically been down only over the past year. Just another good metric to look at for a sanity check. You know, is money coming in or is money going out? Money's clearly going out. If we look at volumes on exchanges, exchange volume is just, you know, straight to zero, right? Nobody's here. Generally, don't expect miracles across the board. Don't expect fairy dust and rainbows. We do see periods of no activity historically, right? So this isn't out of the ordinary. I do think retail will come back eventually, one day, but probably not anytime super soon. So you got to set your expectations accordingly. Something else to look at that I need to just make myself at this point is the stablecoin dominance or stablecoin supply ratio. The general thought here being that if we have a bunch of dry powder, effectively, stablecoin on the sidelines, money ready to be deployed and allocated or reallocated into the system, then if we use this as an oscillator, we can sort of see, are people risk off here? Are they risk on here? Historically, is this where people get more risk on if there's a higher allocation into stablecoins? I think the Luna stuff is in here. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll just have to make my own version of it. But in any event, we are seeing risk off type behavior, right, on this specific version of the metric. Before I talk about any specific charts, let me mention today's video sponsor, as you already know, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the trading experience at Kraken with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with a link in the description of this video. And we'll come back to this, but I did recently add iceberg orders, which are a great way to sort of hide an order. Instead of putting, let's say we're trading DOT, okay? We want to buy 1,000 DOT. We can hide that order by having a display quantity of, let's say, 10 to 100 DOT without sort of disrupting the book. A lot of times when you put on a large order in the order book, the bots or the people, whoever's trading this, will see that and things will get jostled around a lot, right? One way to sort of hide that is to use the iceberg order down here at the bottom. So just some non-alt stuff that certainly influences alts. I talked about this in the live stream I did today. I'll try to do live streams every week. They seem to be received with welcoming arms. So I think I'm going to do Thursdays at 2 p.m. EST. That's what I'm going to shoot for. But in any event, we have a strong dollar, we have strong oil, we have weak risk on S&P, weak tech stocks, weak NASDAQ. Collectively, this is not a recipe for bullishness and risk on assets, that which crypto is, that which altcoins are, Bitcoin, ETH. So again, I'm not expecting a miracle here. In the near term, dollar is super strong, and we really do best when the dollar is at least flat and weak. So we're not seeing that. We're seeing a very strong dollar. And if energy is bullish, if energy is ripping higher, then that gets baked into the inflation picture a little bit more, and there's expectations that inflation will start to ramp up again. And on top of that, we've got technicals that suggest bearishness on S&P and the NASDAQ. So all in all, not expecting any miracles here. Now, Dylan LeClaire put this together, and I was seeing it make the rounds, and it's definitely true. If we look at the money supply, global M2, and the year-over-year change of M2, and if you have no clue what I'm talking about, just think of it as, when the government printed a bunch of money for stimulus for post-COVID stuff, M2 exploded on a year-over-year basis. They've since been trying to pull that back, and they've actually done a decent job at pulling that back. Over time, since, 1930, right, they've only continued to add money to the money supply, and that's why the dollar has continued to weaken. But in any event, these microbursts of increases in the money supply or short-term increases in the money supply have definitely been felt on the Bitcoin price and are certainly important for altcoins. So if we're seeing global M2 flat or down on a year-over-year basis, I wouldn't expect liquidity to magically pop up into altcoins, right? So this is another metric that many people have talked about for a long time and continues to be very relevant. So it's worth taking a quick peek at, because again, it doesn't suggest anything amazing is going to happen anytime super soon price-wise, just broadly, right? ETH, I've beat this dead horse for months, but we had built this ascending triangle, then we'd built this macro head and shoulders pattern, even though it was a diagonal neckline, whatever. It's broken both of those patterns to the downside here. The only reasonable way this saves itself is if we can get back above 2,000 relatively soon, really before Q4. I'd expect this, if it's going to do anything, like BTC in 2015, fairly soon. If this is actually bullish, it will make an attempt to save itself. I'm not betting on that. This will probably go for lows like everything else. There's just no volume here, right? Ultimately, that will be the deciding factor. We will see a big volume spike one way or the other, just as we did in 2015 with Bitcoin. So if this, then that. If we can break 2K, I like 3K. If we break current lows, I like 1,000 to 1,200. Potentially we go that low based on diagonal and horizontal support, VPVR, stuff like that. And if we look at the mega zoomed out channel known as Pitchfork, we're also in the get ready for some oversold type behavior territory. So if this thing is going to save itself on this multi-year Pitchfork, it's got to do it fairly soon, right? After, let's say 1,200, 1,150, whatever this is. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Just as this was overbought at the top, we could potentially see oversold conditions on the bottom here. But I'm not expecting a miracle for ETH anytime soon, and ETH BTC also just sort of neutral. Not expecting anything super bullish anytime soon on this pair either. It's in a channel, it's in the cloud, it's got nothing going for it on either direction, but it certainly doesn't lean bullish. So today, let's go through some of the layer ones, the layer twos. Let's look at what's got volume today. Not a lot of volume generally. So we talked about ETH, talked about BTC a couple days back yesterday. ETH perked up in the volume today. There was an announcement that ARK applied for a spot ETF for ETH versus the futures. And I just think it's funny how all of the altcoin people, Solana, I'm sure the Solana crowd, the community is saying, our ETF is next. We're going to get a Solana ETF. Just like the ETH crowd was perking up when we got a application for a spot Bitcoin. But yes, one day we will have 30 ETFs. We will have baskets. We will have leveraged Solana ETF. We'll have it all, right? It'll take some time. One day we'll get there, but it'll take some time. Speaking of Solana, like many of these charts, there was an attempt for a diagonal inverted head and shoulders, a horizontal, whatever, right? Solana has drifted back to the neckline So it's certainly less bullish than it was at the breakout. And just as we sit here, I certainly don't expect a miracle, right? I keep saying that, but you could argue maybe this is a falling wedge. Maybe this breaks out at the neckline, right? There was some good Solana news on that Visa settlement stuff, but you didn't really see it on the chart. Nothing really popped up. Nobody really cared. Just as we sit here, generally, nothing is bullish for the most part, especially the majors. Ripple, honestly, at this point, I don't know what narrative is left. They won the lawsuit, they got relisted, and back to whence it came. I don't know what's left in the Ripple tank. I'm sure they'll think of something on the PR side of things, but this is by no stretch of the imagination bullish as well. Litecoin had its halving a few weeks ago at this point, and certainly not seeing any bullish momentum off of that. Like everything else, just sitting at lows, grinding lows, not bullish, no matter how you slice it. Really, I can't force any bullishness on any of these charts. The dot chart is the same. It's like AVAX. It had a chance, right? And it just didn't quite get there. It's headed for lows, looks like it's ready for more. There was no momentum saving this just yet. On all these charts, what you really want to see, I know it's hard to see on the Kraken chart, what you really want to see is a massive spike in volume. You want to see people throwing up their hands and saying, you know what, you're right. It's all over. This was the FTX dump spike in here. You want to see something similar to that. You want to see emotion. You do not want to see apathy. Apathy is incredibly bearish. So this could grind lower. This could go sideways for 6 months. I do not expect anything amazing to happen there. ADA, same thing. I mean, there's no way I can draw anything bullish here. I can't pretend that there's anything bullish here. The best case for all of these charts, including Bitcoin, is some sort of W double bottom. But the point in which you care about that is here, not here. Okay, we're basically there on most charts. So I wish I had better news. I wish I could magically be bullish. AVAX, I know we talked about this one weeks and weeks ago, but anything with potentially a descending triangle, there's an expectation for lower lows. There's an expectation for bearish continuation. So certainly not something I'd want to sit in and hold and expect prices to move higher. So that was layer one. So let's look at layer two. We'll look at Matic. I don't know why they have EOS listed as layer two, but Matic looks like every other chart, right? It just looks like it wants to go for lows. We'll look at EOS anyway. EOS, same thing, just hit a low, all-time low for Kraken. I don't think it was an actual all-time low across the board, but no momentum here. Just nothing. INJ, probably the better looking charts. But again, this too is flipping bearish. You've got this M double top, volume's kind of dropping off. Most coins with high volume, you're not really seeing much excitement. Link is still in purgatory, and the point at which I start to care about it is up here. You could ignore it till that happens for me, right? I know some people like to accumulate maybe at the lows, maybe it goes lower, maybe they accumulate down here. I just don't care. Right? I want to buy strength. I want to wait for it. It's taken a year plus, give it its sweet old time. I have no doubt that eventually one day this thing will pop above 850 and you'll hear about it and they'll write tomes about it and it'll be amazing. But in the moment, that is not happening. It is stuck in its range bound mode and there is no upside momentum at the moment. Atom continues to hold its sort of parabolic advance to the downside. Another thing to watch when you have this type of trend channel, again, would be volume. The worst thing you can see is just a bearish bleed for weeks and weeks and weeks. On the Web3 side, I don't think there's much else. Band is a Link competitor, I guess you could say, also at the lows. There's nothing here to me that looks exciting. Let's look at whatever this is. Looks like at this point, you've missed the breakout. I must have looked at this one of these weeks, but it's on the bullish side of the cloud, I guess. It's got volume. Volume sort of dropped off, but to me it looks like that move has came and went. Pax G, that's gold. Talked about this. It's a gold stablecoin. Talked about this as an inverse cup and handle. Doesn't quite look like that's played out just yet, but it also doesn't look like we've negated that possibility. So something to watch for if you want to pick up some Pax G. We'll look at Uni and Maker curve. Uni also just kind of hanging out, waiting for some bad news or something, right? It just doesn't look doesn't look super bullish. Looks like AVAX looks like it wants to eventually make for a push lower here. Maker, we had the Vitalik rage quit when Maker said they were going to move to Solana potentially, and price looks okay. Not too much happening in the moment though. So across the board, there's really nothing that looks like it's ready to have a push higher. Oof, here's Con. I haven't looked at this one in a minute, but you know, you can think it's silly to draw lines on charts like this and call it blah 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 chart pattern. But man, when these work out, look out below. Many of these charts just have the same, you know, a descending triangle rather. Doesn't look bullish for any of these. Just across the board, unfortunately, on the USD side, Aave also descending triangle. You know, we can start to talk about bullishness when these charts move above that diagonal resistance. No matter what it is, we're just not there yet. Just needs a little bit more time. Maybe Q4, maybe Q2 2024. We're not there yet. Let's look at Doge and then the privacy coins, and we'll call it there's just nothing here, right? They all kind of look the same. They're all just kind of at the lows, just holding, ready for more lows. Monero, kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, not a pretty triple top, head and shoulders, whatever. Maybe this is a range, but it doesn't give me confidence that we pull up bullish. Looks like Zcash had a little bit of a down frisk, caught some bids down there. But in general, I would not expect any of this stuff to pull up anytime super soon. Look at this. This is a multi-month downtrend for Zcash. So I'll start to get more excited when this stuff collectively gets above the daily cloud. We get volume back. We get eyeballs, users, all that sort of thing. Right now, we just don't have it. That's all I have for this one. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.